Hi my dear friends, welcome back to our lighting workshop. My name is Hussein Mishaykhi and I hope that you are all doing well wherever you are. This is in fact our last session and we're going to work on this scene, this new scene, which is basically a crossover between a neoclassic scene and a postmodern one. And I've basically created this scene and did the modeling and also decorating of this scene myself. And together we're going to do the lighting for this scene during these two sessions with a sunny theme. Okay, we're going to add a sunny theme with some sunlight coming in. We're going to have some background images and we're going to also work with some V-Ray light material that we previously worked with in the last session. And with that intro out of the way, let's just actually start and do the lighting. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do is to just add a camera here. Okay, that's what I need. So I'm gonna add a V-Ray physical camera like we used to in the previous sessions. I'm gonna come up here, click on this button, add a V-Ray camera. And after we chose V-Ray physical camera, we can just go over the parameters, put the shutter speed of 50 in, and we can just keep the F number at 8 or 16. It's your choice. So I'm going to put the camera here outside the building, and whenever we did that, we had to enable clipping, right? So after I'm done positioning this camera in the location that I want, okay, somewhere here, I'm going to have to enable clipping for it. Okay, so let me just do some final adjustments, maybe here. Okay, let's just move it closer to the wall. And like I said, we have to enable clipping, and now we need to adjust the two planes that we have, far and near. And I'm gonna push F3 on my keyboard, get this view, and let me just adjust the far and near planes. I think they're just in the right place, and let's go inside our camera's view. Okay, so this is the shot, the angle that we have with this camera. And I'm gonna click on this button and go up here in the modifier. I need to change the film gate. I'm gonna put in 21, let's say, and I'm gonna manually adjust it even further so that I can just get everything in this shot. Okay, so 26 would be better so that we could just include more objects. I'm gonna do on hide all, and I think my camera is pretty set instead of the placement or position and also the parameters. By the way, I've explained all of these different camera parameters that we have here, like depth of field, the focal length, the F number, and the rest of the parameters in my render setup workshop, which is basically another workshop in my V-Ray 6 workshop series. Okay, so if you're interested in that, you can just check that out. And let's just go back and see what else we have to do here. So we took care of the camera. Let's just add our first light. I'm gonna add a V-Ray sky. So I'm gonna open up environment and effects, and I'm gonna load a V-Ray sky that I usually use. And you can similarly add a dome light like we previously did, a V-Ray light. Choose the type dome for it, and you can just load the V-Ray sky here, okay, for its map. So this way you won't need an HDRI image, and this will do all the work. And I'm gonna open up my material editor window, and I'm gonna reset this window so that we get a new fresh materials and no saved up materials. And by the way, I'm working on a script so that it could just appear on the left side, and you would get access to a lot of materials that I've created myself, and they're very useful to have. So make sure to check that out when it comes out. And now that our material editor is reset and ready, I'm going to drag this V-Ray sky onto one of these spheres and enable a specify sun node so that you have access to all these parameters. Let's go to one of our cameras and see how our scene looks, and we can start taking our render. Let's go to the render setup, do some stuff here, put it on the radiance map, very low for the preset, ambient occlusion enabled, and noise threshold is fine. So everything is ready for our first test render. So let's just take it and see what we are working with. So we have some light coming in, and if there are some materials that are not working properly, like the plant and this table, it's because I'll work on them using the Corona renderer, and now that we are using V-Ray, they're just kind of problematic, and we can just fix that. And it can happen, these things happen all the time. In the newer versions of Corona and V-Ray, they can be used interchangeably a lot of the times, but sometimes we have this kind of problem. So if I wanted to fix this plant, for example, I would have to use this picker tool to pick one of these materials here to see the textures that have been used, the reflections, everything. So I'm gonna have to check the maps, some of these parameters to see if I see any problems. So let me just bear with me to see if I see the problem and I can just fix it right away. If not, we can just use another object very easily. Nothing really big here. So let me see. I think there's a problem with the reflection map of this plant here, maybe in the lower part of it. So let me just pick that, check out this texture. So I'm gonna get rid of the reflections, put all of them on black, and let's check this out. Okay, let's just check this reflection, put it on black, do the same thing with this one also. So I got rid of all the reflection. I can do something here. I can just cut this material, add another one momentarily, and then just paste it over that new material. Okay, so that we get the setting and the parameters that we had before, but this way hopefully without the problems that were present. Let's just double check everything here in these maps. Let's check out the IOR. Okay, the bump map. Let me just try to get rid of all of them and see if that got rid of the problem. So I'm going to paste it back here, apply it, and see if that fixed the problem. Alright, so don't worry about this part, just bear with me. You can just use another object totally and get rid of this problem, but I'm pretty sure that has fixed the problem. Let's just go back and take a render. Okay, so let's go to camera number 3. I have another camera. Okay, so I have 3 cameras. I only remember adding 2. Let's just check it out. I'm gonna delete the extra one. I think it's this one. Let's see where it's located. It's here. I don't need it. I'm gonna delete it. Okay, so let's take our render and see how everything looks. And by the way, we can go to the frame buffer, add the exposure right now, and increase the exposure like we learned to do in the previous sessions. And now that everything's brighter, we can add hue saturation control and decrease the saturation. Also add a filmic tone map and put the number at 0.7, the intensity, and also put a contrast curve, and like we used to do, just move it down slightly so that we can just have a little bit of contrast but not too much. Okay, let's just adjust it very slowly. Take your time with this curve. Okay, so things look better now, and let's just select our dome light, and I'm going to increase the multiplier from 1 to 3 so that everything's brighter, and I'm going to take another render. Okay, so we have some dark spots here, and they're going to go away when we use the brute force method for our engine. And we can also move the slider for the highlight burn to the left to get rid of some of these light burns that we have, and we can increase the exposure even further. And as I'm taking a look at this scene, because the design has been done properly, lighting it is not that challenging and we won't have that many problems. And let me just add this real quickly that with V-Ray 6, the new version of V-Ray, I think using the HDRI image instead of the V-Ray sky in the dome method that we just used would give us a slightly better results, but we're gonna try that out too and compare it for ourselves. I think the HDRI route is gonna give us cleaner results, but we're gonna see that for ourselves. So let me just take a final render with this setting, and then we can just compare it to the next render that we're going to take with the HDRI image and everything, and we can just compare everything really easily. Oh, and by the way, after that we're going to add the sunlight and the background and everything. So let's see what kind of render we get with V-Ray sky in our dome light. Okay, it's not bad. We have some dark spots that we can just get rid of with adding a light that will give us some shadows too, but it's no biggie, so we're gonna take care of that. And let's just see what an HDRI gives us. So I'm gonna close everything, go back to the dome light, clear this map, the V-Ray sky map, and I'm gonna add the same 4K HDRI image that we've used multiple times, this one. So let's just grab this and put it on one of these spheres to get access to the parameters. So let me just quickly do that. I'm gonna grab it and drag it over onto this sphere. It's an instance copy. Okay, so let me just make sure my render is on interactive, and we can just modify the lights very quickly. Let's just go back to our HDRI image, and I'm going to add a color correction map so that we could just get rid of the saturation and the colors like we used to in the previous sessions. So I'm gonna move the saturation slider to the left so that we won't have so much saturation, and then I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna increase the overall multiplier to 20, and let's see, maybe we could even use a bigger number to have more light coming in. Let's just put it to 40, okay, twice that amount, and let's see what we get. So okay, so on the left side, it kind of seems like that light hasn't reached the left side. So let me just increase the contrast a little, and I'm going to increase the exposure too. And by the way, this exposure filter is working wonders for us. And if I toggle this off, you can see how different our scene looks without it. Okay, so everything seems ready for our sunlight. Let me just adjust these values one more time, decrease the saturation a little. Okay, and all right, so let's just go ahead and add the sunlight. And when you're trying to add the sunlight, make sure that your sunlight is not too white, is not too yellow, and make sure that you get nice shadows that you're looking for. So always try to look out for these things. And I'm going to add the V-Ray sun. It asks me whether or not I want the V-Ray sky as well. I say no. I'm going to put it here and try to preserve this 90-degree angle between your camera and your V-Ray sun. Okay, so if I were to change my camera's position, tilt it to the right, I would need to move the V-Ray sun to keep that 90-degree and get nice shadows. And it's not a must, but it's a nice principle to look out for when you're trying to get your shadows. Okay, so it doesn't really have to happen every time because sometimes you have objects in the way, but just try to pay attention to that principle as well. I'm going to change the intensity multiplier to 0.01, make it a lot less intense. And as you can see in this render, my sunlight is not that noticeable, so I'm going to have to make some changes here. I'm going to move the sun up. Okay, and by the way, after we take care of this time of the day, we'll take a look at evening and a sunset look as well. Now let's just take care of this. I'm gonna increase the multiplier to 0.1, make it more intense. Now we're getting some sunlight, and I'm gonna change the size multiplier to 10, make the size bigger as well. See how that changes our render. And I want the sunlight to hit the plants that we have in this area, the one on the table, and that is kind of the reason that I moved the sun up a little so that it could just hit this plant and the table. And I also want my sunlight to be more yellow, so I'm gonna adjust the color. Okay, let me see what we have here. A little bit more yellow. Okay, and then I want to move my sun down a little. It's just too high for this scene, and I'm gonna tilt it to the left so that it just hits those plants right. And let's see what happens this time. All right, so I think what the problem is that we have a white floor, white walls, and also a lot of white objects like furniture and stuff, and the sunlight is kind of like white too, and it doesn't really stand out. So we have to think of doing something else. I'm gonna choose the sun, I'm gonna put the render on interactive, and this way we can see the changes that we make instantly in this render. Now, as I said, we have a white floor and the sunlight is supposed to be on the floor. So even if I change this color to more intense yellow, it's not gonna be sufficient for me. It's not gonna do much for me, and it's not gonna give us that sunlight look that we are looking for. So what I have to do instead is to just put this turbidity number to the max, which is 20, and you can't use anything above 20. That's the maximum value for turbidity. And once you do this, it will automatically decrease the amount of intensity that your light has. So I would have to change the intensity multiplier to a bigger number like 20 again. And now the turbidity is at 20, the multiplier is at 20, and we can just wait for our render to finish. I think this time we're going to have some more warmth in our scene and the sunlight that we are looking for. Okay, here's our new render. Alright, as you can see, our render got a lot better and we got some of that yellow sunlight that we were looking for so badly. So we finally got it, and what actually solved the problem for us was changing the turbidity and increasing it to the max, and also changing the size multiplier. Now I can just add more contrast because we have a brighter scene. I can just have more contrast in my scene if I want to. Okay, that's good. Okay, so it would make certain spots darker, but we can just take care of that when we are taking a render with the brute force method. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this scene, looks great. And what I think would take this render to the next level is if we could just add some sunlight on the walls, and if we could just somehow manage to do that by lowering the sun and moving it down a little and just get some shadows out of the plants that we have placed on the table. Okay, if we could do that, our scene would be just a lot better. So let's try out different very sun positions, move it down. It's a trial and error process. Okay, and as it turns out, we have to lower it a bit more and try this again. So I'm gonna do that. Let's just move it down. This time I'm gonna change the target as well. So I'm gonna select the target of this V-Ray sun and move the target to, okay, I'm gonna manually place it where I want it to be. So it's gotta be here, there, that's the pivot. I'm gonna move it a little further down towards the walls. Let me just select the source of light again so that I can just move it around easier next time. And let's go back to our render, see if that changed anything. Yes, we are seeing some changes. So we got a little bit of that sunlight on the wall. I'm gonna change the intensity multiplier to a bigger number, like 30. Okay, I want to intensify this effect here that we have on the wall. It's just beautiful, it's gorgeous. Okay, and I'm gonna even use a bigger number here for the multiplier. Let's try out 60, and I'm gonna decrease the size also. So I'm gonna have sharper shadows because I've decreased the size multiplier of the sun. The smaller the sun, the sharper the shadows. There, a lot more beautiful. See how beautiful this looks? And because we kind of intensified the color of the sunlight and everything, we even have some added contrast. Okay, so everything looks better now. So let me just adjust the sun again, okay, so that it would even be better. I'm going to move the sun a little bit higher, and I'm going to move the curtains to the side, okay, so that I can just have more of my sun going through the window. Okay, let me just move that to the side. Let me just check it from the back. Okay, that's enough. All right, good. So let's just go back and check out the render again. This time we will have more light coming in. Great. So what I want to do now is to just kind of decrease the contrast that we have added with the curve. So I'm gonna take this line and put it closer to where it was before. And I'm gonna go to the filmic tone map and also the hue and saturation. Let's just check out the filmic tone map. It kind of makes our render darker, but it looks good. So I'm gonna keep it probably. Yeah, I'll keep it. Okay, it looks good. I'm gonna decrease the saturation again, and let's see. I'm pretty happy with the render that we've got here, and it really looks gorgeous. So I think now is probably the time to take a final render from this scene with these lights that we've added so far. And we're gonna add some artificial lights for the chandelier and other lights inside the building too, but let's just do everything step by step. So I'm gonna go to the render setup, take a final render first, and see how that looks. So I'm gonna put the engine on brute force, the same setting for the previous final renders. I'm gonna go check out if there's anything here that needs to be changed. Nothing. I'm gonna take the render, just a smaller size, 2500 for the width, and the height will be just proportionate to that number. Let's just check out this render. It's a final render. We're gonna get rid of some of the noise and some of the dark spots that we have. And as we are looking at the final result, we can see that we still have some noise, especially here in this area, that we can just take care of by increasing the number of subdivisions that we're going to use as samples in our render setup. But that aside, we can see the colors kind of resemble the Russian theme that we talked about before. Alright, so let me just add another camera so that we can just capture another angle. This time I'm going to capture the window and the table. I won't need clipping because the camera is inside, so I'm going to disable it. And let me just change this perspective here, see if I can find a nice shot here. I'm going to go back to the render setup and change my render size with this window, make it a little bit smaller. We're going to take a test render first, and let me just go to the modifier, change my film gate, and I'm going to keep the other parameters the same. Let's just take another render by clicking on the frame buffer and see how this angle looks. So let's actually take this new render and check out that one as well. Click yes. Okay, this one looks good too, but by the way, I didn't really take my time working on the materials that have been used here. I just wanted to focus on the lighting aspect of things. And if we were to focus on material as well, it would just look a lot better than you can see right now. Let's just go back to the other camera. I'm gonna capture another angle. Maybe I would need to change the render setup again, change the render size window. Let's just do that first. Make it bigger, wider. Okay, and instead of adding another camera, I'm gonna change the angle of the camera that I already have. So let's just do that. So I open my list of cameras, select the camera number 2, and I'm gonna change the angle. This time I wanted to include more objects and cover more ground, maybe go back a little, have some of that furniture and table showing, and also the plant that we have on the left and the window on the right. Okay, so this can be good. So let's just take a render with this angle and see what we can get. Okay, so this render looks really good as well, and the background looks good too, but I'm going to show you how to add another background so that we can just add to our experience. Okay, so I'm going to close this. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to draw a plane. Okay, I'm going to draw a plane here, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, there. Just make it bigger with the scale. Put it right behind the window. And now I'm going to open my material editor by pushing M on my keyboard, and I'm gonna assign a material to this plane, and I'm gonna click on this V-Ray MTL button. I'm gonna choose a V-Ray light MTL for this. Okay, so a kind of material that gives us light, and I can just change the color for it, or I can just add an image to be used for it. And I'm gonna click on the no map and choose a bitmap, and for its bitmap I'm gonna use this image. Okay, so I'm gonna assign it to that plane, and as you can see, it hasn't showed up on the plane. It's because the color is white. If you change the color to black, the background image is gonna show up, and not a lot of people know about this trick. Okay, so you do that, and then go to the modifier for this plane and increase the number of width segments like this, and then add a bend modifier and try to kind of like bend this plane here this way. Okay, and this is gonna make the image look better from the inside. Okay, so let's go inside, and let me just move this background image so that we can just see some of the buildings. They are at the right height. That should be good enough. Now we can take it under and see how it looks, but I already know that the intensity of the light is not going to be enough, so we would probably need to increase the multiplier for that, and we'll do that if we would need to. Let's see what it gives us. Okay, so let's just change this number from 1 to 10, make it brighter, and we can even make it more blurry as well, so that we won't see so many details in the background. Okay, so I can just change the multiplier to 15, make it brighter, and then I can just change the blur as well. Let me just change the multiplier first, maybe 8. Let's settle down on a certain amount of brightness and light for the background image, and now I can just change the blur for it as well. I'm gonna change it to 3. Okay, it's more blurry right now, and we can see less details with the buildings and everything. And now I think we've achieved what we set out to achieve with this angle. Everything looks good. I'm pretty happy with this render too. It's an artistic render. It's not something that you would want to give to people who want to implement a project, but that was the point from the beginning. Okay, so we wanted to create some nice looking renders, high quality renders for our portfolio. If I wanted to take renders for people who want to implement the project, I would take renders that look a lot brighter. And I also wouldn't have taken renders for the nighttime or other times of the day, and I probably wouldn't have made it so complicated or advanced by adding the chandelier lights and some other lights that we would add to this scene to add more contrast, some decorative lights. I wouldn't have probably done any of this, because for implementational renders, they don't need to be sophisticated. They could just be a simple render. But like I said before, every month or two we should have a project like this one and take some really high quality renders so that our customers look at those renders and give us the projects that we are looking for. Okay, so we need these kind of high quality renders to put on our social media profiles and our portfolios and our pages. Okay, so that is the main reason that we are working these renders to perfection. Okay, so let me just delete this background image, and that's pretty much it for this session. We learned about the sunny theme and how to add the sunlight. Now I'm going to take a final render, so I'm going to go to the render setup, change my width to 3500, and I'm using the brute force method. So let me just check out everything. Let me just go to the V-Ray tab, and for my min and max subdivisions, I'm going to use numbers like 20 and 100. I'm going to put the 0.001 for my noise threshold, and I can just take this final render and call it a day. But before that, let me just quickly do something else. I just thought of something. Let me just go to the render elements real quick and add all the elements that we have here so that we can just work on some post-production in Photoshop after the render has finished. Okay, so I'm gonna change the width again to, I'll probably use a bigger size. Instead of 3500 for my width, I'm gonna use 4500, and we won't have any kind of noise, hopefully. So let me just take the render. It's gonna take 5 or 6 hours. It's okay. I'm gonna fast forward the video, and after that we'll just go to Photoshop and work with the result. There, so this is my final render. We have no amount of noise. It looks great, and it took a long time, but it was worth it. So let me just find this image on my hard drive, drag it over into Photoshop, and we can just do some post-production there. Here inside Photoshop, I'm gonna put it here, and I'm gonna add another element. Let me just add the AO element first, V-Ray AO, which is basically the ambient occlusion. And now it's my top layer. Okay, so I'm gonna go and change the type to multiply, and let me just toggle it on and off. You can see how much detail this ambient occlusion layer adds to our work. It's just magnificent. See the differences? It's just a beautiful render element that makes everything look better. We kind of get a different color for our plant, but we can just easily fix that. For everything else, it looks great. Let me just try out another type like darken and see how that looks like. Let me just see. No, I think multiply was better. So I'm going to put it on multiply, and I'm going to choose the eraser and take care of this little part with the plant that got too dark. So everything looks good now. So I'm going to keep the ambient occlusion layer. It looks great, adds a lot of detail to my work, and it just enhances our render. I'm going to decrease the opacity too, and everything is ready. Okay, so I'm going to keep this render element. It's just really good. Let's go ahead and add another element like V-Ray lighting. Let's see. Okay, so I think I'm going to use the V-Ray sun element instead. So let me just see what that looks like. This one. Okay, you can add some warmth to our scene. Drag it over into Photoshop and choose the type screen. Okay, it makes our scene more lively and more warm. So I'll probably keep this. If you thought that it would make your scene too yellow, you can just go to the hue and saturation and use these sliders. But what I'm going to do is to use the eraser and erase the parts that I think should be whiter and less saturated, but keep that metal glow, that yellow glow that looks really beautiful. Okay, so this just makes our scene so much more lively and warm. So let me just do a Control-Z and do this one more time. I'm going to delete it and add it again. V-Ray sun, I'm going to add it here. And after we have added that layer, we can change the type to screen, change its type to screen. And this time, instead of using that eraser, I'm going to go to image adjustments here, image adjustments, and change the saturation, image adjustments, hue and saturation. And I'm going to change the saturation slider like that. And I think it's pretty good right now, so I'm going to keep it this way. Let's go on and add another one. This element is called V-Ray Cryptomatte, and what it does for us is basically it divides our scene into different color segments, and as you can see, we have multiple color segments, and I can just use this magic tool to select a certain segment like this ceiling, and I can just change the color for it and adjust it however I want. I can change the brightness, make it darker like so, change the contrast. And to work with this tool, you kind of need a little bit of Photoshop know-how, but you can just get all of that in our post-process workshop if you want to. But it's a really useful tool to work with. I can just do something really cool with the floor. Let me just select the floor with this tool, and I can just change the color, the brightness, everything. Okay, so let me just quickly show you. If I go to adjustments and the contrast curve, I can change the contrast for the floor, and now our floor looks kind of darker and better. So again, it's a very useful tool if you know how to work with it, and you can just use it to enhance your scene based on the color segments that you just saw when we added that element. Alright, so that's finally it for this session, and this was the last session in our workshop. In this session, we'll learn how to work with the sunny theme and how to add sunlight into our scene. And overall, I hope that you've gained enough insight and knowledge from the videos of this workshop so that you can just apply them in your own projects. And one final thing that you should pay attention to is that where do you want to use this render? Is it Instagram or a site like Behance.com? If it's Instagram, you should use a size like this because everything looks better in this size on Instagram. And if you were to use this size on Instagram, things would just look too small and not as good. Alright, that's finally it for this workshop. I hope that you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you in the next ones.